Hi, this is Carrie Schell from On Point Quilter. Pop-up containers are currently the rage, and you can find their patterns at most of your local quilt shops. I decided to play in Electric Quilt and create some ideas for developing your own panel to be used with these patterns from Fat Quarter Gypsy. So we'll get started by opening EQ7 and closing the tip of the day. And since this is a new project, I'm going to call this one Pop-Up Templates. And I'll click on OK. This one will be a template that we can use for a lot of different blocks. Now, in order to create this, I'm going to actually use Custom Set, which allows for more variability in both the blocks and the placement of the blocks. First of all, so I'm going to do a quilt, new quilt, and I'm going to do a custom set quilt. Now, in my layout, the first thing I have to do is set the size. So what I did was I went to the Fat Quarter Gypsy pattern, and for this tutorial I'm just going to use the medium, but her outer fabric rectangle that she was recommending was 26.5 by 9.5. Now we're going to subtract the seam allowances, which is 1/2 inch, and so we want to make the size of our center rectangle 26 inches and the height 9 inches. Now we don't want any borders because we want basically the size that we're going to work with. Now, before I get started adding blocks, I want to check on a few settings. So I'm going to go to the More Quilt Work Table option, and I am going to go to the Snap settings. So first of all, I want to show my grid because that's going to help me in placement. I want to snap my block position to my grid. And I'm going to put this at every 1/2 inch, which will actually work well. I've played a little bit with what I want to do here, and that will allow the snapping to work nicely. And I will click on OK. Now for the first option here, and I'm going to go to Layer 1, I want to add, I'm going to start with 3 8-inch blocks. And so I'm going to do a set block, and there's nothing in my sketchbook, but that's okay. I'm going to click on the little flyout button in the corner here, and I'm going to select Add a Plain Block, and I'm going to drag it onto the workspace. Now I'm going to need to resize it, so I will use the Adjust tool. I will select the block, and it's 6 by 6, and I'm just going to, in the Precision toolbar, change it to 8 by 8. And then I can snap it somewhere in place here. And I know I want 3 of them, so I'll do a Control-C, Control-V, and a third one I will do the same. Now, for this particular setting, I also need either an upper border or a lower border. And I actually decided to put both in place. They're going to be fairly small because if you use your tape measure and you look here, this is basically 1 inch. So if I want them both on the top and the bottom, I will want them to be 1/2 inch apiece. So I'm going to set another block, bring it in, and for this one I'm going to resize this at the size of the panel, which is 26, and then the height I'm going to make 1/2 inch. And now I can put that on the top. I'm going to move that out of the way so I can get to my corner there. And then I'll do a Control-C, Control-V, and I will put that one on the bottom. Now I also need to add sashing strips in between, and so I need to figure out what's going to make sense for them. And what I decided is if I make this one and this one, 1/2 inch, then I can make this one 1 inch. So I think I'm going to start with that, and again I can adjust if that's not right. So I'm going to bring another block in. I'm going to change the size to 0.5 wide and 8 inches tall, and that will fit in there. And I'll do a Control C and V and bring it over, and then I'll do one more, and I'm just going to go ahead and change that to 1 inch, and I'll bring it to the left. So I now have a template that I can put some blocks in. So because I'm going to add some come up with some different options, I'm going to go ahead first of all and add this to the sketchbook. So now I need to go to my libraries, go to block libraries, and I'm going to bring some blocks in to addition in this new layout. So I'm going to go to the 8 pointed stars, and I'm going to bring in this St. Louis star variation. The other thing I thought about is we could also do some applique blocks. So I went into the contemporary applique. What if I brought in a couple of these Easter chicks? And I'm going to close my sketchbook. So the first thing I'm going to do is set my block, and if I take my first one and set it, now I do need to color the sashing. I prefer actually looking at real fabrics. I'm just going to do a random recolor. And if you do not have that tool, the very bottom of your toolbar, there's a customized toolbar. And if you click on that, it says Add Remove Buttons. And there is a button called Random Recolor. So if that one is not checked, go ahead and check that. Now what I'm going to do is with that random recolor, all I'm going to do is click on Map to Fabrics and click on the block, and it basically recolors my whole block. Now I can make changes and adjust, but I think you get the concept of how this works. So I'll add that to the sketchbook. Now for my next option, I'm going to do my set block, and I'm going to take my chick and then the hatched chicken there as well. And for this, I'm going to use my random recolor again, Map to Fabrics, and click on one of the spaces. Now I do want a little bit more consistency, so I'll use my eyedropper tool, and I will select like that color, and then I will use my paintbrush and just do some recoloring. Again, trying to carry some of maybe what I've got in one of the blocks to the other. Then let's me do another one. Actually, let me do the feet with that over here. And then I think I like the yellow versus the white, so I'll bring that over there. And now I can close my recolor. So I have some very fun blocks that would work very nicely in a pop-up. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to the sketchbook. But wait, there is more. So I thought, what if I, rather than 8-inch blocks, I did a series of 6-inch blocks? So I'm going to go back and I'm going to view my sketchbook. And I'm going to go to my first template that was out there and edit it. And I could have just started from scratch, but sometimes it's easier just to adjust what's there. I'm going to take that 6-inch block, or that 8-inch block, and turn it into a 6-inch block. So I'll do a 6 by 6. And I'll get rid of these. Frankly, I'm going to get rid of these as well. And now I'm going to make 3 copies. And I am going to put these in place. And again, I have to think a little bit about spacers here. And so in this case, I'm going to have a spacer in the top and the bottom. And again, I could make equal spacers around all 4 blocks, but I sort of liked the idea of just having a spacer here and here. And remember, this is going to be connected to this edge over here, so it will make it look fairly symmetrical. So I'm going to set block. Again, I'll bring in a spacer or a plain block. I'm going to adjust, and I will go ahead and make this 1 by 8 again. And I'll do another Control C, Control V, bring that one in. And then I have one more that I need to resize, or bring in size. So I'm going to do another set block. And for this one in the Adjust tool, I'm just going to try playing with it to see if I can get it to fit. And it's close here, but it's at 6 by 2, so I'm just going to move the arrows to make it exactly 6 by 2, and do a Control C, Control V. And again, make 4 copies. Okay, let's go back to our library now and bring in some new blocks. And for this, I'm going to go to Classic Pieced. I'm going to go to Diamond in a Square, and I'm going to bring in basically 4 different blocks from that setting. So I'm going to click on Set Block. I'm going to click on one of those blocks, and all I need to do is click on the space, and it will now fill my space. For the next one, I'll try that. And then I'm going to go ahead and close my sketchbook. I'm going to go ahead and do the random recolor. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to do some changes on it, but it's enough to get me started. Now, I have to decide, am I okay with these spacers here? I mean, it's not bad, but when I started to think about it, I thought, these would be really fun with some maybe checkerboard items on it. So I thought, let's just make a couple of checkerboard blocks real quickly. So I'm going to go to Work on Block, and for the first one, my block was 6 across and 2 down. I'm going to change my snaps to be 6, and I wanted these at 2, they won't let you do one of 2, so I'll make it 4. And I will make my graph paper 6 by 2. And snapping options, the only thing that should be checked is snap to grid points. So now I'm going to use the grid tool, and I'm going to click on the little red red dot in the corner. And I'm going to make the number of columns 6 and the number of rows 2. And once I've done that, I can create my checkerboard. Now I can go ahead and color that. And again, I probably just want some spring colors. And I'm going to go ahead and add that to the sketchbook. Now while I'm here, I'm also going to do a second one. So I will do a block, New Block, Easy Draw. And this one is going to be 1 inch across and 8 inches down. So my snap is going to be 4 because that's the minimum number, and my snaps vertical are going to be 8. And my graph paper is going to be 1 by 8 as well. So for this, I can continue to use the grid tool, but I'm going to make the columns 1, and the rows are going to be 8. So now I can drag that, go ahead and color it, and I can just use the same colors. And now I can go back and work on quilt. So now I can do a set block, and for those spacers I am going to go ahead and just fill them in. Oh, I forgot to save the one block, so I'm going to go back to my work on block, in my color tab, add to sketchbook. Now I'm going back to work on quilt, and I'll take that new one and fill it in there. Now you can see the one challenge I have is it's not quite lining up. So what if we rotated the block? I can do that. Now the problem is this one down here doesn't work, and even when I do the rotation it doesn't work, but I can flip the block and everything does. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of recoloring at this point. And so once I have that done, I can add to the sketchbook. So here are two basic templates, one for 6-inch blocks, the other for 8-inch blocks. Obviously you can create your own using Electric Quilt. Thanks so much for watching. For additional tips and techniques, please feel free to subscribe to my weekly newsletter at www.onpointquilter.com.